Hello, I'm Emily Carver. Now, this week, Foreign Secretary David Lammy announced a £50 million aid package to support the Syrian people following the fall of the Assad regime. Now, the government says this will go to help the most vulnerable Syrians, including refugees across the region. But considering the man putting himself forward as the next leader of Syria is Abu Mohammed al-Jilani, the leader of the Islamist militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS. Is this sending large sums to Syria a potential risk? Could it be that the money does not go to those who need it most? And considering the government has taken the winter fuel payment from pensioners, they're planning to tax family farms like never before. The number of homeless on the streets of the United Kingdom is on the rise, and the NHS fears yet another winter crisis. Is this really the right priority for the UK government and the best use of British taxpayer money? Well, earlier we spoke to the former Minister of State for the Middle East, Alistair Burt, who had this to say.
What do you think the government is trying to get at here with this aid? Is this diplomacy, or is this actually trying to help out desperate people? I mean, there's an argument that they're trying to sort of win over HTS.
Well, there's a series of things behind it. Firstly, Syria is in a mess. It's a state that's had 13 years of civil war. Cities are destroyed. People have been moved from place to place, and people are quite desperate. There's barely an economy, and people are in desperate need. So there's a humanitarian aspect to the support being given. Secondly, everybody wants to see Syria thrive, and that means having a system of government which the Syrians will choose, but which is different to what they've had, and of course different to what we've seen in the region when there's been a collapse of a tyrant and authoritarian government. Now that needs support, that needs international support. We're not the only country offering assistance in a whole variety of ways. So it's not a question simply of trying to win over HTS. We will find out what sort of regime they are in due course. But trying to provide support as it gets going is probably the best way to ensure that it provides the reasonable and plural government that Syrians quite obviously want to see.
I mean, is it going to make a difference when it comes to that? I mean, a lot of people are getting in touch saying, you know what, we've got pensioners who are going to be struggling to put the heating on in this country. We've got homelessness on the rise, sadly. We've got the use of food banks that has increased over recent years. We've got huge amounts of people unemployed, not working, or on welfare, etc., etc. There's quite a lot to be spent in this country, and some people are saying, well, hang on, is this 50 million to Syria? Is that just the beginning? Who exactly is that going to be going towards? Can we trust all the NGOs and the various charities to make sure that it doesn't get into Islamist, potentially terrorist hands? And these are questions that people are asking.
Yeah, well, it's always difficult for government to make choices in terms of its spending, and we know that. But this is £50 million being given to Syria. Next year we're going to spend £192 billion on the NHS. We're going to spend we spent this year £319 billion on welfare. You know, we spend money in this country on things that we need on a scale completely different to that of offering £50 million to those in need in Syria.
I suppose on that point then, Alistair, if it's a small amount of money, and I suppose in these international contexts it is actually a relatively small amount of money, is it actually going to do anything?
£50 million is a lot of money to most people, Tom, and it's joined with other
Alistair, you were just explaining how little amounts of money it is.
No, Tom, it's little in comparison to the billions of pounds we spend on people in the UK. Your point was that we want and need to spend money on people in the UK, which of course we do. I've just pointing out it's on a completely different scale, but it doesn't mean that £50 million isn't much money.
Yeah, but when you've got pensioners getting in touch who are fearful that they're not going to be able to put the heating on, who are actually living without the heating on at the moment because they've had their welfare benefit taken away on the winter fuel allowance. We're told all the time that our public services are crumbling and struggling. The NHS doesn't have enough money, even though it does, as you say, have so many billions going in. I mean, a lot of people just don't think that that is the priority of the UK government and don't trust that the money is going to actually do what our ministers say it will do.
Well, two things. Firstly, as I say, there's a lot of money spent by government on many things, and overseas support and support to Syria at the moment is a very, very small proportion of what the government spends on other things. Your viewers and listeners are right to be concerned about the needs in the UK, and of course they're right to express them, from farmers through to pensioners and others. I'm not making a case against that. But in terms of Syria's needs at the moment and the needs of other states, two things are important. Firstly, if Syria's government can provide for its people with support from the international community, it means bad actors will not do so. Because in many states where the governments can't provide, others get involved, and they usually demand a price from the people, and that's not good news for them.
But could we be giving money? Could we be giving money to Islamists who have just released potentially hundreds or even thousands of potential terrorists? Who may be out to get the West? We know that there could be British jihadists, for example, who have been released, who could be making their way back to the UK as we speak. Well, we don't know. I think it's, can we follow the money adequately is what I'm asking.
Yeah, there's a lot of work put into tracing and making sure that money is passed over in the right way, and ministers are often asked to confirm that routes are safe. But your point about people leaving Syria and coming in our direction is a good one. If things aren't good in Syria, more people are going to leave. Remember, millions have already left Syria. 3.5 million are in Turkey. A quarter of Lebanon's population are refugees. And of course, if they're provided for in Syria, there is less likelihood of them being on the move. So that's another good reason why we should be involved.
Yeah, I suppose there is an argument that this is very small fry in terms of all of the numbers that we're talking about. I mean, £50 million as a one-off. I mean, that's less than we spend on hotels for illegal migrants in one single day.
Yes, but we've spent some £4 billion on Syrian support since 2013.
OK, so that's what Alistair Burt had to say, the former Conservative Minister of State for the Middle East. But I want to know, what do you think? Do you think that £50 million of taxpayers' money to Syria, when we don't know what the next formation of the government is going to be, when we can't be absolutely sure where in fact that money will end up, could potentially be used for nefarious activities at the same time as people in Britain are really struggling with the cost of living, when pensioners no longer have their winter fuel payment, when the cost of living is constantly on the rise, where the number of homeless is, to our shame, increasing in this country, where we're always taught that our public services are crumbling. Is this really the fairest use of British taxpayers' money? Perhaps you think that it is. Perhaps you think that this is exactly how our government should be spending hard-earned British taxpayers' money. I just wonder whether we can be absolutely sure that this money is in fact going to go to the most in need of it, or whether perhaps it would be better off being spent at home. Leave a comment below. And of course, while you're here, do not forget to subscribe, give this video a like, and of course, leave a comment.